Hello and welcome to this new episode of Open Book Entrepreneur. Today we have Sarah here with us, and she's actually helping women reach these seven, eight-figure businesses. And Sarah, please introduce yourself to our audience.
Hi, thank you, Tony, for having me. I'm excited to be here. So I am a former entrepreneur. Now I help powerhouse women create the success that they desire in their business while also being able to be successful at home in their personal relationships as well.
Oh, wonderful! So can you tell us a little bit more about what do you help them with?
Yeah. So, what I found through going through this path myself is it really comes down to self-leadership. Oftentimes, as leaders, as entrepreneurs, as people that have a mission and a purpose and are doing big things in this world, we tend to be really good at leading other people, and oftentimes it comes down to leading ourselves last. Um, and often, sacrificing ourselves or our personal relationships for that success. And so, what I really focus on with women is coming to this space of what do you want what do you desire your life to truly look like? What do you truly desire in life in all aspects from money, your personal goals, your personal relationships, all of that, and finding where you can be more connected to yourself, your mission, what you desire out of life, and bringing that into your business and leading with that first.
Great, yeah. And obviously, you talk a little bit about energetics in the business. So,
Yeah.
can you tell us how important is that?
For me, I found that to be one of the most important things. And all of this comes from my own personal experience. I spent a lot of time, over a decade, in more of that hustle culture, more of the like just chasing the money, just making business work, all strategy, forget energetics, that's too woo woo, and like all of that kind of mindset, right? And I got to a point where like I was successful on paper. I had the success, but I was burnt out. My kids were not getting any younger. I realized I really put making money on a pedestal, being successful on a pedestal, and everything else was, sacrificed for that, right? And so um it just hit me like a ton of bricks one day. I think it was as my daughter was getting older, she was getting into middle school. I was like, what am I doing with my life? Like I want to, spend this time with my kids. I want to, have these experiences in my personal life, but I'm having all the success over here, and this other area of my life is not successful at all. And it was within energetics and self-leadership that I found the path that got me basically everything I wanted. When I made these changes in my business, the money didn't suffer. In fact, I actually had more success and continued success in my business. So yeah, so I think for those people who are really looking to, it's not just about the money, it's full life fulfillment. Energetics is the most important thing.
Okay, and when you say energetics, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, it's not what you're doing, it's who you are when you're doing it, right? So for a long time, um, when I think the best way I could describe it, when I was in that space of just chasing money, it was more I saw that almost as my identity. I grew up in poverty, so I didn't have money to begin with, right? So I was really trying to create that from a space of survival, from a space of I don't want the life I had for my kids. So, I'm going to do everything to make their life better. Um, and money was the answer to that, and nothing else was the answer to that, right? Like, so I think it really comes down to from that type of place, from that survival mode. Now I am more in the space of it's like money is the byproduct of who I am being in the world, right? Like I am Sarah Dumas. I have this movement to help women, and I'm leading with that first. And I have also taken a look at what I wanted to create in my personal life. My business now is a family first business, as I mentioned. I put my kids' stuff on the calendar first. Tomorrow morning, for example, at this time, I'm going to be at my son's school because he's got a thing going on. These are typically my normal business hours, but when there's something like that my kids got going on at school or whatever the case may be, those things are a priority. And I make sure that those get booked before any business things get booked. And so now it's more in the space of I have more spaciousness in my business. I have more intentional time created in my business that obviously still work on my business. We all have to make that work. And I'm making more money than I did before, but I'm actually working less hours because the intentionality that I'm putting into it is stronger. Whereas before it was kind of like just throwing spaghetti at the wall because it was just like whatever's going to make the money, like just do the thing to make money. Like money was the reason, right? It was like that was the biggest focus.
So, what are some of the major things that help you really make your business successful?
Now,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, so I prioritize what I call the CEO activities. I think a lot of times in business, especially for those of us that, our path, we were not necessarily modeled entrepreneurship, or maybe we were, like myself, my dad's an entrepreneur, but he also worked tons of hours, so it wasn't in the space of what I would want to create. Um, we oftentimes approach entrepreneurship with the same mindset we have as an employee. Um, I know, I used to be able to sit at my computer for 12, 16 hours straight and like it's like at the end of it, how much money did I actually make? What were the activities I actually did that brought in the money? It wasn't a lot. When we have a job, we can sit at a job for 8 hours and get paid for 8 hours, but how much work are you actually doing? How much effective work are you actually doing during those 8 hours? A typical employee only works about 2 to 3 hours of actual productive activity within those 8 hour windows. Other time you're scrolling, you're chatting, you're in a meeting, whatever. But like actual productive work is not a solid 8 hours a day. So we take that mentality and we bring it into our business and we're sitting at our computer quote unquote doing all these business activities, but we get a notification on our phone and before we know it, we're scrolling for 30 minutes or we spent 30 minutes doing something not related to business. We find ourselves lost in all these different ways. So one of the biggest things that I did, because my priority was how can I be more effective, work less hours, but not have, but actually have my income grow. I put very intentional time in my business where the set hours that I have for business are for business and I am focusing on those things that are going to bring in money. So I'm not sitting down working on, necessarily my website or whatever. I'm doing things like podcasts that are going to give me some visibility and reach. I am my business is driven a lot through social media, so I am creating posts, I'm responding to comments, I'm responding to messages, things that are can possibly lead to money coming back into my business, not, whatever, researching something or just updating my sales page. And not that updating your sales page is not important, but that exact activity is not a conversation with somebody that could lead to a sale. So what I do and what I also help my clients do is really focusing on the core CEO activities, which while you're building your business, that is where is your ideal client showing up and going to those spaces on the internet or in person or whatever it might be and connecting with potential clients or customers or whatever it might be to have those conversations and see if there's a possibility to create sales out of that. That is the core of what every entrepreneur should be spending 99% of your time doing, out obviously outside of delivering programs and all of those other things. But most people don't spend their time doing that. They do the other things that really don't matter at the end of the day. When I was first building my business, I started my coaching business in 2017, but the first 3 years of that, I brought in my very like masculine, like all of that energy of like just sales matter, sales matter, sales matter. And so that included, all of the crazy email sequences, the expensive softwares, all of that. When I revamped my business and started really seeing the success, it was after I got rid of all of those things. I canceled the expensive softwares. I stopped doing these free webinars and all of those things and just stuff that was taking so much time. And I just got back to the basics of human connection, human conversation, letting my ideal client know what I have to offer them. And I started seeing success. Like I had a higher, I made more money in 2 weeks' time than I did like in my 3 months prior to changing that combined. And so, yeah, I think it's just really important to focus on the right activities in your business as well.
And how do you let your clients at that time? How are you letting your clients know what you do?
So my main thing again is through social media. So especially when I revamped and had all of that traction and change, I was going live on Facebook. I was finding different groups that allowed you to go live. So I was connecting with new audiences, doing all sorts of things like that. Now I have enough audience built up and email list and all of that that I'll fill my like free master classes and things typically through that. I do a lot of podcasts and summits now as well. Um, and I mean, I still go live on social media. I do reels and things like that. So social media strategy has helped, but it's really, even with that, it's approaching social media from the lens of like your social media is your business card, and coming through in that sense of, and I think again coming back to the energetics conversation of how you're showing up, who you're being when you're showing up in the world to create your business. It's like everything you're doing is your business card. Even, running to the grocery store, right? You don't know who you're going to run into and how that might impact and change into a possible working relationship. So those are it's that more human connection piece, changing how I was showing up online and everything like that.
Great. Okay, excellent. And so what's one piece of advice that you can actually share with someone who's got a challenge when it comes to energetics in business? Because obviously, right now, a lot of people I'm talking to, they go through some challenging situations because of the economy, because of the, I don't know, AI and number of different sort of threats in our industry. Yeah. So, or, clients just saying they want to sort of sign up later or think about it, or they don't have enough money or time to sign. So all these things are affecting the energetics of the business. What's one piece of advice you can give them?
Yeah, so this comes into it's energetics piece, but also identity work of, if you had whatever your goal is, maybe it's 6 figures, multiple 6 figures, 7 figures, 8 figures, doesn't matter. Whatever that looks like, whatever your version of success looks like from a money standpoint in your business. And also, I think this is important to do it parallel with just your life completely. What level of success are you having in your business? What kind of hours are you working in your business? does your personal life look like, and whatever that time freedom or family first or whatever the priority is there, and looking at that as a full picture. And I always recommend people take paper to pen because it's a different experience than just jotting it down on your phone. um Looking at that, and if your goal, let's just pick seven figures because that tends to be a very popular statement or figure. If your goal is to be a seven figure CEO, or business owner, and you are wanting to scale whatever you're doing, and you're facing these different challenges. I hear all the time about like AI threats and everything you just mentioned. Personally, that does not bother me at all because I am in the identity of Sarah Dumas, this leader of helping women scale their businesses and all of this. I don't even see or recognize any of that as a threat. I don't in my daily, I'm not worried about this person said no, that, this situation with AI or whatever the case may be. But that is baked into the identity that I've created, right? Back myself up 2017, I was the type of person, I'm like, I sent that person the payment link 3 days ago. Why didn't they click it? And I'd be following up, hey, just wanted to check in. Did you get the payment link? It's like, of course they got the payment link. You sent it to them. You see they read it or whatever. It's sitting in the inbox, even if they didn't read it. That's such a silly question. Of course they got it, right? Like there's no need to do that follow up. Um, and I'm not saying follow up's not important, but I think that comes down to at the end of the day, you're still in the space of chasing the money. You're not in this space of where I take women from, and I've also worked with men as well, so this works for everybody. But it's like when you're in that chasing, you're kind of at this level. When you're in this like boss seven figure CEO, you're at this level, right? It's like if I'm the expert, if I am the seven figure leader of whatever, insert whatever mission purpose you have, I am the only option for my ideal client. And not to say that I'm better than anybody else, that's not the energy of this. But for my specific ideal client, the type of women I like to work with, all that, I am the only option because I'm the expert. And that is the type of energy that I come into my business. Do I know that there's a million other coaches who teach similar stuff to me? Yeah. Do I care? No. Right. So it's like when you come into that kind of identity, these things don't affect you. You show up in that different energetics, that different confidence. You show up in a completely different way versus when I was in the space of like, oh my gosh, I need to make this sale. This person hasn't bought, like what's going on? Um, it's a lot lower of an energy. It's what I call the stench of desperation. It's like the creepy person who like won't leave you alone and is like, "Oh, come on, like let's just talk or whatever." And it's like you're like, "Yeah, it's okay. I don't really want to talk to you." Versus the person who walks in the room and you're like, "Oh, wait, I need to talk to that person. Like, who is that?" Right? They capture your attention. That is the difference between, you know, just showing up in your business to make a sale and worried about all these things versus like when you show up with the level of confidence of the expert, the go-to person, those things don't matter. And not to say that, if I looked and tried to find things in there of like, I'm sure in some way these things are impacting everybody's business, including mine. But I don't focus on that. I am focusing on the bigger purpose, the bigger mission, that level of confidence. And you get a different response from people when you show up in that space. So my advice would be really looking at what you want to create and asking yourself like how can you step into that version of you who is that go-to seven-figure CEO of whatever you are going to create, and showing up and believing. And this is where the mindset and energetics and all of that come into big play of like your ideal client is out there looking for you specifically, not your competition. They're looking for you specifically. And so, with that, how are you going to show up today in your business?
Great. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that, Sarah. And then on top of that, like obviously, if someone wants to actually get in touch with you, connect to you, learn more about you, how they can do that.
Yeah, you can reach out to me on either Instagram or TikTok. It's the same handle. It's the Money Coach 888. Also, my website is sarahdumascoaching.com.
Great stuff. Yeah, I'll include these links in the description of this episode. If you like this episode, drop us a like, subscribe, and also if you have any questions for Sarah or me, you can drop them down in the comments and we'll be more than happy to answer them. Thank you, Sarah, for being a guest, sharing your story, your knowledge, your tips, and thank you all for watching, listening, and see you all in the next episode. All the best and bye bye.